For thousands of years, the galaxy moved forward with its own rhythm, its own rules, and its own arrogance. Civilizations rose and fell, alliances formed and broke, wars started and ended, but one thing never changed: no one cared about Earth. Humanity lived quietly on the outer edge of the star maps, far away from central hubs, far away from politics, far away from every important decision. To most species, humans were harmless, weak, and slow to progress. Their technology was simple, their influence almost zero, and their presence in meetings was usually ignored. The galactic records wrote a single line about them centuries ago: low influence, harmless, and no one ever bothered updating it. It was as if humanity had been forgotten on purpose, pushed to the far corner of existence where no one would ever look at them again. But sometimes the things the galaxy forgets are the things it should have feared the most. The day everything changed was silent. No warning, no alarm, no sign of danger. Just a sudden pulse, a strange ripple that spread across deep space like a heartbeat. It came from a dying star system called Arethys 9, a place most maps didn't even show anymore. The star there had collapsed long before most species learned to walk upright. That system was dead, empty, and meaningless. At least that's what everyone believed. But then strange emergency signals started pushing their way into galactic channels. The signals were old, older than most civilizations, and coded in a way even the best archives refused to open. This alone was enough to terrify scientists. A message so ancient that the galaxy didn't even have the technology to decode it? That was impossible. Yet the signals kept coming, steady, cold, and filled with something that felt like a warning. A small research fleet from the Caranthai Collective was closest to Arethys 9. Their commander, a calm but cautious alien named Relis, ordered the fleet to respond. They expected maybe a forgotten colony ship, maybe ruins of some extinct race, maybe a broken satellite sending random noise into space. They did not expect what they found. When they reached the system, the dying star barely glowed. Its light was thin, fading, like a candle fighting against a storm. The planets around it were cracked and lifeless. Everything looked dead. Everything looked ordinary. But then their long-range scanners picked something so massive that even their strongest sensors struggled to map it. A wall. A single metal wall floating in empty space, stretching for hundreds of kilometers like a sleeping titan made of steel. It had no markings, no lights, no heat signatures, nothing to show who made it or why. It was just there, silent and ancient, as if waiting for someone to discover it. The research crew stared at their screens in disbelief. No one had ever seen anything like it. The wall wasn't a ship. It wasn't a station. It wasn't a natural formation. It looked like a barrier, like something built to keep the universe out, or to keep something inside. But what shook them the most wasn't its size. It was the message that appeared on every scanner, every device, every display in the fleet at the same time. The letters appeared slowly, glowing with cold white light. Do not remember what must stay forgotten. The bridge fell silent. Relis felt his skin crawl. The message seemed written in human language. But why would humans be involved here? Why would Earth, the quiet, harmless species on the edge of space, leave a warning in a dead system? Why erase all records of this place? Why bury a structure the size of a moon? Fear spread among the crew. The youngest researcher, a nervous technician named Yilra, whispered, "Commander, are we sure this is human?" Relis didn't answer at first. Humans were simple people, peaceful, almost too peaceful. They had never built anything close to this scale. They had never fought in major wars. They rarely traveled beyond familiar stars. This wall did not match anything about them. And yet the message, short, direct, and chilling, felt unmistakably human. The tension inside the research ship grew heavier. The crew whispered among themselves like frightened children. Some wanted to retreat immediately. Some wanted to contact the council. Some wanted to open the archives again, hoping to find even one clue. But every attempt to explore the records came back the same: access denied. Even the oldest archives refused to unlock. Relis ordered the fleet to approach slowly. The idea of leaving without answers was impossible. Something massive had been hidden here, something connected to humanity, something the galaxy was never supposed to see. As the ships moved closer, the dying star cast a thin red glow on the metal wall, making it look even more monstrous. Its surface was smooth, untouched by time, not a single scratch or dent. It looked alive, like it was breathing under the faint starlight. The crew felt their hearts racing. A structure this old should have erosion. It should be damaged. It should be falling apart. But this wall looked as if it had been built yesterday. The moment they crossed a certain distance, their lights flickered. Engines trembled. Monitors dimmed for a second. It felt like they had entered a zone where time itself behaved differently. And then, the wall moved. Not a lot, not fast, but enough to freeze every soul in the fleet. A deep vibration echoed through space as if something ancient was waking up after thousands of years of sleep. At first, Relis thought they were imagining it. But then the massive metal plates on the wall began sliding apart, slowly, heavily, revealing a dark passage behind them. The opening was so large that their entire fleet could fly into it with room to spare. Ylra screamed. Another researcher fainted. Relis felt his stomach twist, but he forced himself to stay calm. This was no ordinary structure. This was a doorway. A doorway into something humanity hid from the galaxy. Something they didn't want anyone to remember. The message on their screens repeated again, but this time the words looked almost alive, glowing brighter: do not remember. The galactic researchers panicked. Some begged to retreat. Some shouted warnings. Some prayed. No one knew what would happen if they continued. All they knew was that humans, quiet, harmless humans, had built something powerful enough to hide an entire star system. Something terrifying enough to erase itself from history. The passage inside the wall was pitch black, deeper than anything they had ever scanned. It swallowed their lights, their sensor pings, and even their courage. And yet the opening kept widening, as if inviting them, or luring them, inside. The air in the bridge turned cold. Their breath felt heavy. Something in that darkness was alive. Something human. Something forgotten on purpose. And now, after thousands of years of silence, the galaxy had knocked on a door that should have stayed closed. The wall stopped moving. The final plates locked into place with a sound that echoed across the void like a giant heartbeat. The doorway now stood fully open, its darkness stretching endlessly into the unknown. Relis could feel it in his bones. Whatever lay inside would change the galaxy forever. And for the first time, he understood the terrifying truth: humanity was never weak. Humanity was never harmless. Humanity was never forgotten by accident. They hid themselves. They erased themselves. They buried their past so deeply that even the stars forgot. But now, the past was waking up. The forgotten was opening its eyes. And the galaxy was standing in front of a truth it was never meant to see. The wall pulsed once, like a final warning, before everything fell silent again. The darkness inside waited patiently, almost breathing. And Relis knew, with sinking dread, that the moment they crossed that doorway, there would be no turning back. The forgotten saga of humanity was about to reveal itself. And the galaxy would never be the same. The research fleet hung silently before the open passage, every ship frozen, every soul inside gripped by the cold fear crawling slowly up their spines. No one dared speak. No one dared breathe too loud. The darkness inside the metal wall felt alive, like something watching them, studying them, waiting for them to make the first mistake. Commander Relis stared into that endless void, and for the first time in his long life, he felt small, so small that even the dying star beside them felt bigger, stronger, safer. But fear wasn't the only thing tightening his chest. There was something else beneath it, something strange and heavy in his heart, a feeling he didn't understand yet. It was grief, grief for something he had never seen, never known, grief for a past that wasn't even his. He didn't know why he felt it, but the darkness inside that passage pressed on him like a memory he never lived. The scanners flickered again. Not a malfunction, something inside the wall was interfering with their systems. Every ship showed the same unstable readings, time distortion, gravitational fluctuations, faint biological signatures that came and went like whispers. Ylra clutched her seat, shaking. She whispered, "Commander, it feels like the darkness is breathing." Another crew member, trembling with fear, replied, "No, it feels like it's remembering." But remembering what? No one knew. No one could even imagine. Relis forced himself to calm his crew, but his own voice sounded thinner than he expected. He ordered a slow advance, and the fleet drifted cautiously toward the opening. As they crossed the threshold, the dying light of Arethys 9 faded behind them, swallowed by metal walls taller than mountains. The moment they entered, the entire fleet felt pressure, like something heavy pushing down on their hearts, squeezing their thoughts, slowing their breath. The passage was lined with enormous metal ribs, stretching endlessly into the black distance. Their lights flickered as if the darkness was hungry, drinking the energy right out of their beams. Relis tried to speak, but his voice cracked as he said, "Record everything. No matter what happens, the galaxy must know what we found here." His words felt meaningless in the huge empty space, like whispers dying in a cathedral. They moved deeper, and the walls around them began to change, slowly at first, then more visibly. The smooth metal gained patterns, shapes, then markings, like scars burned into ancient steel. None of the markings matched any known language, yet somehow they felt familiar. Ylra gasped softly when she saw one symbol, 3 lines crossing a circle. "Commander, isn't this the symbol humans used during their early space age?" Relis stared at the symbol in silence. He had seen it in old museum files, old textbooks, old forgotten images. A symbol humans abandoned long ago, before they became another quiet species in the Council. But why was it here? Why was something so old, older than human history, etched inside this forgotten place? One of the researchers whispered, trembling, "Humans didn't build this recently. This is older than anything we know. This is impossible." Their words echoed painfully through every ship. It was impossible. Humanity didn't have the technology to build a structure the size of a moon thousands of years ago. They didn't have the engines, the power, the knowledge. And yet the symbols were here, their symbols, buried in a place no one knew existed. As they moved forward, the passage widened until it became a vast chamber, so large their ships looked like insects floating inside a giant's lungs. Darkness filled every corner, yet something glowed faintly far below them. It was a floor, covered in dust and abandoned machinery. Relis lowered the flagship slowly, touching the surface with trembling engines. A wave of cold air swept over them, making every crew member shiver. It wasn't ordinary cold. It felt like the cold of forgotten memories, the cold of something that had been alone for too long. The chamber lights flickered. One by one, old screens attached to the walls powered on, faint at first, then stronger, until dozens of them glowed around the room like watching eyes. None of the aliens dared move. The screens showed static for a moment, then shapes, figures, humans. Old humans. Their uniforms were outdated, their weapons ancient, their faces worn with exhaustion. They looked like soldiers who had seen too much death, too much loss. One human officer on the screen wiped blood from his forehead, shouting orders at someone outside the viewer's perspective. Behind him, alarms flashed red. The walls shook as if something huge was hitting them from outside. Relis felt his throat close when he realized the truth. This wasn't a simulation. This wasn't a message. These were recordings. Real recordings. Real humans. Real war. A war the galaxy never heard about. A war erased from every archive. The human officer turned toward the camera, breathing heavily. He said 4 words that made every soul in the chamber freeze solid. "If you found this." The screen went black. Ylra screamed, not out of fear, but out of shock, the kind of shock that breaks a person's sense of reality. Another screen flickered on. A different human appeared. This one was older, his beard long, his eyes tired. He whispered softly, almost broken, "You were never meant to survive this discovery." The message cut off. A third screen came alive. A woman this time, her face covered in ash, her voice shaking as she said, "We hid our past, so you would not repeat it." Every sentence stabbed deeper into the hearts of the research crew. Humanity had a past. A past powerful enough to hide? A past bloody enough to erase from time? The idea alone made the crew tremble. Relis stepped closer to the screen, placing a hand on the cold metal frame. He felt something, an emotion so strong he had no words for it. A deep sadness. A heavy loneliness. A sense of sacrifice so enormous it made his eyes sting. These humans weren't weak. These humans weren't simple. These humans weren't harmless. They were soldiers of a forgotten age, warriors who had fought something terrible, something the galaxy never knew, something that shaped the very bones of their civilization. The chamber trembled suddenly. The floor shook. The walls groaned. Something massive was moving deeper inside the structure. The screens all turned off at once. Then, a low hum echoed through the metal, vibrating through the ships, through the walls, through the bones of every living being present. A soft light appeared at the far end of the chamber, growing brighter, larger, like a distant sun rising inside the complex. The crew stared as a massive shape slowly emerged from the darkness. A ship. A human warship. Older than anything they had seen but still terrifying in size and design. Its engines glowed with ancient power. Its armored hull carried scars from battles older than recorded time. And across its front was written a name in simple English. The First Spear. Ylra collapsed to her knees, tears flowing from fear and awe. Another researcher whispered, voice shaking violently, "Commander, humans told the galaxy they never built warships. They lied." Relis stepped back, feeling the full weight of the truth crushing him. Humanity didn't forget their past. They forced themselves to forget. They buried their own history. They erased their own victories. They hid their monsters. And they hid their weapons. This place, this massive vault, was a graveyard of human power. A secret humanity hoped would never be found. The ship, the First Spear, powered on. Lights across its hull flickered awake like the opening eyes of an ancient titan. Engines rumbled with thunder. The chamber shook as if the past itself was rising. Relis choked on his breath, realizing the horrible truth. Humanity didn't leave a warning because they feared others. They left a warning because they feared themselves. And now, the vault was awakening. The past was breathing again. And the galaxy was no longer safe. The warship, the First Spear, continued waking from its ancient sleep, its massive engines humming with a deep vibration that shook the entire chamber like an earthquake trapped inside metal walls. Light flowed across its armor like veins coming alive after centuries of silence. The research crew inside the alien fleet felt that vibration in their bones, a heavy thrum that made their hearts beat out of rhythm. No one spoke. No one moved. They simply watched as a forgotten piece of humanity rose from the darkness like a ghost returning from another age. Commander Relis felt something rising in him too, a strange mix of awe, fear, and a deep sadness that felt older than the galaxy itself. Ylra clutched her console with shaking hands, whispering words she didn't even understand. How did humans build this, thousands of years ago? How did they hide it? Her voice echoed softly through the silent bridge, but no one answered because no one had answers. The truth was too big, too heavy, too impossible. Suddenly the lights inside the chamber shifted, turning from pale blue to a dark red as ancient emergency systems activated. Screens that were dead moments ago flickered back to life. Dust lifted from the floor as if gravity itself was adjusting. The temperature dropped sharply, and a thin mist rose around the warship's hull like breath from a sleeping giant. The silence was broken when a metallic voice echoed from everywhere at once, calm, emotionless, and unmistakably human. Identity scan in process, unauthorized lifeforms detected, the research crew froze. Their eyes widened. Even Relis lost the strength to speak. The voice continued, heavy and slow like a judge reading a sentence. This facility was sealed by the High Command of Humanity. All non-human presence is considered a security breach. Ylra's breath caught in her throat. A security breach in a place like this, what did that mean? What would happen to them? Before Relis could form a command, the lights dimmed again and the voice spoke a single chilling sentence that made every heartbeat stop. Preparing retrieval protocol. A deep metallic groan filled the chamber as enormous platforms began rising from the floor, one after another, like great slabs of metal awakening. Each one carried something terrifying, silhouettes of more ships, more machines, more forgotten weapons of a human age no one remembered. Some were small, shaped like hunting knives made of steel. Others were massive, shaped like floating fortresses. Each machine flickered with dormant power as systems booted up, one flicker at a time, like angry eyes opening in the dark. Ylra covered her mouth to stop a scream as she whispered, "Humans didn't hide a weapon, they hid an entire war." Her words were soft, but they struck every crew member like a blade. It was true. Everything around them, every ship, every screen, every symbol, pointed to one truth. Humanity had fought something so terrifying that they sealed their whole history away. Relis stepped closer to the viewport, staring down at the rising machines. His chest tightened painfully as he imagined the war that must have created all of this. Something powerful enough to push humanity into hiding. Something deadly enough to make humans erase their own victories. Something so monstrous the galaxy was never allowed to remember it. The thought shook him to his core. As the warship systems fully ignited, a bright beam of light shot from its hull across the chamber, connecting to a massive broken console in the center of the room. The console sparked violently, then flickered to life, showing nothing but static. But then an ancient hologram appeared, faint, cracked, flickering like a ghostly flame. It showed a battlefield. Humans fighting in armor the galaxy had never seen. Giant machines marching beside them. And a shadow, an enormous shadow, falling over entire planets. Ylra covered her eyes as screams echoed from the hologram, real human screams from a war no one had survived to tell. The hologram shifted to a human officer speaking directly into a recorder, his voice ragged, his face streaked with ash and blood. Humanity cannot win this war. His breath shook. We tried, we fought, we bled, but the enemy does not die. It consumes. Behind him, explosions rocked the ground. The officer looked straight into the viewer's soul. If you find this archive, do not look for us. Do not search for the truth. Forget us. Forget everything. The hologram cracked violently, and for a moment the officer's face distorted into pure despair before the image vanished completely. Ylra sobbed quietly into her hands, the sound breaking Relis's heart. He had seen countless battle recordings in his life, but nothing felt like this. The emotion in that human officer's eyes wasn't fear. It was sorrow. Sorrow for the galaxy. Sorrow for whoever would ever discover this place. Sorrow because humanity had sacrificed something so big no one could comprehend it. Relis swallowed hard and whispered, "They didn't hide because they were weak, they hid because they won." His words were heavy and painful as the truth settled over him. Humanity defeated the enemy. But the cost was so great, the scars so deep, that they chose silence over glory. Before anyone could speak, the entire vault began to shake violently. The walls trembled, the ground rumbled, and metal plates shifted as if something massive was moving beneath them. The human voice returned, louder now, echoing like thunder. Retrieval protocol initiated. Awakening primary fleet. The crew screamed in panic as hundreds, no, thousands, of lights activated across the chamber. Engines roared. Weapons came online. Dormant ships lifted from their platforms like metal beasts rising from graves. The air became hot with energy. Sparks flew. Gravity buckled. Something ancient and unstoppable was waking up. And then the warship, the first spear, projected a final message into the chamber. A human face, perfectly clear, looking young yet hardened by tragedy. He spoke without blinking. If you have awakened this place, you are already part of the story we tried to bury. Humanity hid our past for one reason, to keep the galaxy innocent. To keep you safe from what nearly destroyed us. His expression softened. Pain filled his eyes. I am sorry you found this. Truly sorry. The hologram faded, and the chamber erupted with blazing light. The human fleet had awakened. The past was alive again. And the galaxy was no longer innocent. The chamber exploded with light so bright that every alien on the bridge shielded their eyes. Old metal shook like it had woken from a 1,000-year nightmare, dust rising in great clouds as ancient engines roared back to life. The warship, the first spear, hovered higher, lifting off its cradle as if gravity held no meaning for it anymore. Beneath it, hundreds of other forgotten ships began to rise, their shadows swallowing the chamber floor in a massive tidal wave of darkness. Their engines hummed like thunder trapped in cages. The sound wasn't loud, it was worse. It was deep, unnatural, and filled with sorrow, as if the metal itself remembered every death, every scream, every sacrifice from the ancient war humanity tried to erase. Commander Relis gripped the railing, his heart pounding as he tried to understand the impossible scene unfolding before him. The air inside the vault felt thick, heavy, almost alive. Every breath felt like inhaling a piece of history that had been locked away too long. Ylra stood frozen, tears running silently down her face as the warships glowed brighter, their cores pulsing like beating hearts. She whispered in a trembling voice, "Why? Why did humans hide all this? Why bury something so powerful? Why erase everything?" No one answered. No one could. Because every answer felt too terrible to speak aloud. Suddenly, the chamber temperature dropped again. Frost crawled across the walls and screens, covering them in a thin white layer. The lights dimmed, and a strange deep vibration passed under the floor like a giant breathing in its sleep. Then the human voice returned, not loud, but filled with emotion this time, as if the speaker wasn't just a recording but a soul trapped inside the walls. This vault was sealed, the voice said, slow and broken. Not because we feared the galaxy, but because we feared what we might become again. The research crew felt their hearts tighten painfully. Humans had not hidden their power to control others, they had hidden their power to protect others from themselves. The hologram flickered again, revealing another scene from the ancient war. A human woman stood on a battlefield, holding a child in her arms. Her armor was cracked, her face bruised, her eyes filled with a pain so deep it felt like the universe itself was mourning through her. She whispered softly, "We fight not for victory, but for a chance to be forgotten." Behind her, monstrous shadows tore across the land, devouring everything in sight. Explosions filled the sky like dying stars. The woman clutched the child tighter, whispering one last sentence before the hologram broke apart. "If we lose, remember us. If we win, forget us." The message hit Relis like a blade through the chest. Humanity's greatest fear was being remembered. The chamber trembled again as the vault entered a new phase of awakening. Massive steel doors along the walls unsealed themselves with long metallic screams, revealing endless rows of human machines, tanks with legs like beasts, drones with wings of metal feathers, and towering armored figures that looked half human, half warrior god. Their eyes glowed one by one, creating a wave of blue light that rolled across the chamber like an ocean tide. Ylra stumbled backward, whispering, These are not weapons, these are memories." She wasn't wrong. Every machine felt alive with human grief. They were more than weapons, they were chapters of a history the galaxy was never meant to read. Relis felt an overwhelming heaviness in his chest. He had investigated ancient ruins before, recovered lost technologies, studied extinct civilizations. But this was different. This was not a lost world. This was a buried wound. A wound humanity carved into itself and then covered with silence. And now that silence was breaking open. A new screen activated behind them, showing a massive human council chamber, crowded with commanders, scientists, and leaders. Their faces were exhausted, pale, streaked with blood. A man at the center stood with trembling hands, knowing he had to say something no leader ever wanted to say. "We cannot let the galaxy remember us as monsters," he whispered. "We cannot allow our weapons to shape the future of other species. Our victory must remain buried." Another voice shouted in the background, "But how will the galaxy defend itself if the enemy returns?" The leader closed his eyes, pain carving deep lines into his face. "If the enemy returns, humanity will rise again. But only then. Only when there is no choice left." The room fell silent. A single tear rolled down the leader's cheek before he spoke the final words. "Seal the vault. Erase us. Hide our scars. Let the galaxy believe we are weak, so they may live without fear." The screen faded. The silence that followed was suffocating. Even the awakened machines seemed to pause, as if honoring the last words of their forgotten leaders. But then everything changed. The floor shook violently, causing several alien crew members to fall to their knees. The warship the First Spear turned slowly toward the research fleet, its cannons glowing faintly, its engines humming with purpose. Relis felt cold dread spiral up his spine. "It's looking at us," he whispered. The ship's lights brightened sharply, and a final hologram appeared in front of the alien fleet, this time not a recording, but a direct activation. A human commander appeared, tall, calm, eyes sharp as broken glass. Unlike the old recordings, his hologram looked perfectly clear, as if he was standing right there. He spoke with a voice that carried both sorrow and steel. "If you are seeing me," he said quietly, "then you have opened a wound that was never meant to bleed again." Ylra covered her mouth to stop herself from crying. The human commander continued, "We hid our power for the protection of all. Our war ended, but the echoes of the enemy remain. This fleet awakens only under one condition." He paused, staring into the alien souls as if reading their thoughts. "The galaxy is no longer safe. Relis felt a cold weight drop into his stomach. Was something coming? Something even humans feared. The hologram leaned forward slightly, his eyes softening with deep sadness. To the species who found this place, I am sorry. You were never meant to carry this burden. But now, you must prepare. His voice cracked at the edges, revealing a pain that had slept for millennia. Humanity will rise again. Not to rule, but to protect. The hologram dissolved into dust-like particles of light. And then, every single warship inside the vault roared to life. A blinding surge of energy filled the chamber as engines ignited. Ships lifted higher. Cannons armed. The metal beneath them groaned as dormant power returned in full force. The vibration was so strong it shook the alien ships down to their cores. The awakened human fleet was no longer history. It was no longer forgotten. It was no longer silent. It was preparing for war. And the galaxy was not ready. The awakened human fleet hovered above the chamber floor like a storm trapped inside metal, their engines glowing with ancient blue fire that pulsed in the air like broken lightning. The alien research crew could only stare, unable to move, unable to think beyond the crushing truth that humanity had never been what the galaxy believed. Every ship in the vault looked like a chapter from a forgotten nightmare, a weapon forged not to conquer, but to protect against something too horrible to name. Commander Relis felt his breath grow short, his chest tightening as he watched the giant warship, the first spear, turn toward their direction with slow, terrifying precision. Its weapons were not aimed, but the act alone felt like judgment. Not hatred. Not anger. Just a silent warning from a past that no one was supposed to disturb. The chamber lights flickered again, and the air turned cold as if time itself paused. Then, from the heart of the vault, a deep hum echoed, a hum that did not come from any machine. It felt alive, ancient, and filled with a heavy sorrow that spread through the entire fleet like a wave. Screens inside the alien ships turned on by themselves, showing fragmented images of ruined worlds, shattered stars, and silhouettes of creatures that didn't look like anything from the galaxy's known species. Relis felt a chill crawl down his spine as the images came faster. Humans fighting monsters made of shadow, entire planets burning, human soldiers falling one by one, screaming through the static. And then the screen froze on one haunting image, a human child holding a broken helmet, tears running down her ash-covered face as she whispered something silently. The screen showed no sound, but every alien watching felt the weight of her pain echo through their hearts like a knife twisting in slow motion. Yilra burst into tears, unable to hold back the crushing emotional storm rising from the hologram. What did humanity lose? She whispered. What did they sacrifice? Her voice cracked painfully, echoing the question inside every mind present. Another hologram appeared without warning, this one sharper and clearer than anything before. A human commander stood at a colossal war table, maps glowing in red across the surface. His face was stained with exhaustion, but his eyes burned with a fierce, quiet determination. He looked at the camera with a calmness that felt unnatural for someone facing extinction. The enemy has reached the outer rings, he said softly. Our last colonies have fallen. Behind him, alarms blared, shaking the room. Officers rushed back and forth, shouting orders, their faces filled with terror. But the commander smiled, soft, sad, proud. Humanity will not die today, he whispered. We will bury our past before our enemies can take it from us. The chamber around him shook violently, dust falling from the ceiling, but he didn't flinch. He reached out and shut off the alarms manually, silence falling across the room like a curtain. If anyone finds this message, know that humanity chose peace. We chose silence. We chose to hide our scars from the galaxy so that future children would live without fear. Relis felt tears blur his vision. He didn't understand why the emotions were so strong, but the sorrow in the human commander's eyes hit him like a universe collapsing. This wasn't the face of a conqueror. This was the face of a father protecting his people from being remembered as monsters. The hologram continued, but the commander's voice trembled now. This vault will sleep until the galaxy needs us again. If you awaken it, then the darkness we once defeated is rising again. The moment he said those words, every light in the chamber dimmed, the temperature dropped further, and the metal beneath their feet shivered. The hologram flickered, then showed something else. A creature, massive, shapeless, with dozens of glowing eyes, moving through the void of space like a living storm. Every alien who saw it felt their hearts stop. Something deep, primal, ancient inside them screamed at the sight of it. It wasn't just a monster. It was hunger given form. The hologram snapped off violently, leaving only silence and the sound of engines humming like frightened hearts. Suddenly the entire vault began shaking violently. Walls groaned. Massive steel beams trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling. The awakened warships adjusted their positions, aligning into a formation, their movements smooth and coordinated like an ancient army preparing for battle. Relis grabbed the console as the floor buckled slightly. "What is happening?" he shouted, but no one answered. A new hologram appeared, this time smaller, softer, almost gentle. A human woman in a white uniform, her long hair tied back, stood with her hands clasped in front of her. She wasn't a commander. She wasn't a soldier. She looked like a scientist, calm, kind, and filled with quiet sadness. "To the ones who opened this vault," she said softly, "you must understand something. Humanity did not build this fleet to rule the galaxy." She touched the nearest ship gently in the hologram, like touching a sleeping child. "We built it because we were afraid. Afraid of losing everything. Afraid of becoming monsters ourselves. Afraid of the enemy that devoured entire worlds." Her voice cracked, and she looked down for a moment before continuing. "When we won the final battle, we did not celebrate. We cried. We mourned. We buried our own history because remembering it hurt too much." Her eyes lifted again, shimmering with tears. "Please forgive us for what you see now. This fleet is not our pride. It is our trauma." The chamber fell completely silent. Even the engines seemed to soften, humming like a distant memory. The aliens watching felt their hearts twist painfully at her words. Yilra's hands shook uncontrollably. "They weren't hiding power," she whispered. "They were hiding pain." And then, without warning, the warship The First Spear projected one final massive hologram across the entire chamber. It showed humanity, not as warriors, but as families, children laughing, elderly people sitting under trees, workers smiling in fields. It showed the human desire for peace, for normal life, for a world without nightmares. The image lingered long enough for every alien to feel the warmth, before it changed abruptly. The final image was of a human planet burning. A world destroyed. And a single human voice whispered, trembling with heartbreak, "We did everything to protect the galaxy, even from the truth of us." The hologram vanished. The engines of the human fleet brightened. The vault ceiling began opening slowly, metal plates sliding apart, revealing the black void of space above. The awakened fleet was preparing to leave. And the galaxy was about to learn the truth humans died to hide. The vault ceiling continued opening with an ancient groan, the sound echoing through the massive chamber like the cry of a giant waking after ages of sleep. As the metal plates slowly folded back, cold starlight poured in, washing over the forgotten human fleet with a pale glow. The warships shimmered under the cosmic light, their armor reflecting the stars as if recognizing an old sky they once defended. Commander Relis stared upward, heart pounding so loudly he could barely hear the hum of the engines. The void above them felt endless, deep, and filled with a silent threat that made every instinct in his body scream to run. But something stronger held him in place, a heavy sadness he didn't understand, a sorrow that wasn't his, yet pressed against his heart like a memory he had somehow lived. As the opening widened, a strange pressure swept through the chamber. Every alien crew member felt it. It wasn't physical, it was emotional, heavy like grief trying to climb into their chests. The warship The First Spear floated steadily upward, its engines glowing with ancient blue fire that pulsed like a heartbeat. The moment it crossed the threshold into open space, the entire vault trembled violently, as if the past itself resisted being freed. Screens across the alien ships activated again without warning. This time there were no battles, no monsters, no commanders giving last orders. Instead, a single face appeared, a human elder, old and fragile, sitting in a quiet room surrounded by dim light. He looked tired, broken, but peaceful in a way that hurt more than any scream or explosion ever could. He spoke softly, his voice trembling with age and sorrow. "If you are watching this, then the silence we created has finally ended." Relis felt his throat tighten painfully. The elder continued, "We hid our weapons not because we feared the galaxy, but because the galaxy trusted us. And we could not bear to break that trust after what we became during the war. His eyes drifted downward as if remembering something too horrible to speak. Victory changes people. It changed us. We had to bury the part of humanity that learned how to destroy stars just to survive. Ylra held her breath, tears falling slowly from her eyes. The elder leaned forward, his hands trembling. Please understand, we wanted peace more than anything. We wanted children to grow without knowing what we saw, what we fought, what we lost. We wanted the galaxy to see us as harmless, because the truth of us was too heavy to carry. The hologram flickered for a moment, but the elder returned again, this time his eyes bright with a strange light, hope mixed with deep regret. If the vault has awakened, then the darkness we defeated long ago has returned. And humanity must rise again. Not as monsters. Not as conquerors. But as protectors. The hologram dissolved into a soft shimmer of light, fading like a fading dream. Silence fell over the fleet. Deep, crushing silence that no one dared break. Outside the vault, the first spear steadied itself in open space. The other human ships followed, rising in elegant, terrifying formations that felt ancient and powerful. They aligned with precise movements, forming a wall of steel and fire in the shape of an ancient human symbol, 3 lines across a circle. Relis recognized it immediately. He had seen it earlier carved into the vault walls. He didn't know what it meant, but he felt its weight now. It felt like responsibility. It felt like warning. It felt like destiny. The vault's interior lights flickered again, and a new energy pulse radiated outward, scanning the alien ships. It felt like someone reaching out, not aggressively, but gently, almost apologetically. A soft human voice spoke through the speakers, calm and steady. To the observers, do not fear. Relis closed his eyes and let the words settle into him. The voice continued, you are witnesses to a past we never wanted anyone to see. We are sorry you must bear it now. The chamber shook again, but this time it wasn't violent. It felt like the vault was releasing its last breath. Suddenly, the main hologram reactivated. This time, a live feed, something happening in real time. The stars outside the vault began to distort, bending slightly, as if space itself was trembling. A faint ripple appeared in the void, small at first, almost invisible. But then it grew, spreading wider like a tear opening across the universe. The ripple darkened, becoming a swirling shadow that made every heart freeze. Something was moving inside it. Something huge. Something hungry. Something ancient. The same darkness humanity had fought thousands of years ago. Ylra grabbed Relis's arm, her voice breaking. Commander, that thing, it's real, it's coming back. Relis stared at the growing shadow with numb horror. The hologram showed fragmented data, energy readings off the charts, gravitational waves twisting space in unnatural ways. The shadow roared, not with sound, but with a vibration that rattled their very souls. The human ships reacted instantly. Engines flared. Weapons armed. Their formation shifted smoothly into a battle arc so precise it looked like choreography. They weren't just waking. They were preparing. Another human hologram appeared, this time a young soldier, helmet under his arm, eyes steady. His voice was soft but firm. To those watching, this is why we hid. He pointed toward the growing shadow. This enemy does not stop. It does not sleep. It does not negotiate. It devours. The alien crew trembled as he continued, humanity defeated it once, but only by sacrificing everything. Our worlds. Our history. Our souls. His voice cracked, his eyes filled with unbearable pain. But if it returns, then we rise again. No matter the cost. The hologram vanished. The first spear surged forward, engines roaring like the awakening of a god. The rest of the fleet followed, burning through the darkness with ancient fury. But before leaving, one final message echoed inside the alien ships. A whisper, barely audible, almost like a prayer. Do not fear us. Fear what woke us. The human fleet shot toward the shadow in perfect formation, their lights blazing like stars being born. The vault behind them trembled once more, then sealed itself shut forever, returning to silence. Commander Relis watched with shaking hands, tears falling from his eyes without permission. He understood the truth now. Humanity had never been weak. Humanity had never been forgotten. Humanity had hidden itself not to protect power, but to protect everyone else from the truth of what they had faced. And now the galaxy would learn why. The human fleet disappeared into the darkness, and the stars trembled.